Welcome to the Moment of Truth video series, presented by Alec, Robinette, and Elemental Financial, where we're going to explore people's stories of moments in time when they decided to take action and make a change in their life, live life a little more fully. What is your moment of truth?
Hi, Alec Robinette. I'm here with Daniel Sage, entrepreneur, musician, artist, and we're going to do a little moment of truth conversation. I've been going around and been asking people a time in their life, a moment of truth, and I describe that as just a time when they've had clarity and decisions kind of came up and decided to move, into a direction, or their life transitioned. And really could be any story that kind of has that involved, to where just you kind of realize the importance of what you are doing and purpose and decide to live life a little more fully. So, Daniel, could you tell us a moment of truth?
Yeah, absolutely. For me, being a musician is about stepping into a state of being, and I didn't realize that there are multiple ways to do this. And as a musician, I have had a lot of emotional things come up in my life, and I didn't necessarily have a way of processing them besides writing songs. Lately, it's been helpful to start a meditation practice, which I also consider entering into a state of being. I got to a point in the practice where I decided that I wanted to try my first meditation retreat. And I applied for a grant to go to this fancy retreat in California for 3 days. And I got approved, the whole flight taken care of. And I get there, and it's just so much silence that I'd never experienced before. I guess as musicians we do create a lot of noise. And I had a lot of moments of truth during that time, but the biggest one was that I wasn't alone. And no matter what I was going through with mental health or emotions or dealing with difficult situations in life, I realized that I am not alone. No matter what I do to isolate myself, I will never break away from the infinite. And when I decided to embark on this meditation journey, I didn't know what it was. And what I now have come to understand is it is the disillusion or dissolving into the divine. And every time I sit down and really sit with myself and my emotions and whatever it is that's going on, it seems to ring true, and have a level of truth, or satya, as you would say in Sanskrit, to really what's actually really going on, and what's going on a deeper unconscious level. And I think those are the moments of truth I enjoy the most, when it isn't just so surface level, and it is deeper. And I think that's our goal as musicians and artists and entrepreneurs, is to go deep. Deeper than surface level, day-to-day, hi, the weather's nice interactions. And that's what I aim to do with my music. It's what I aim to help people enter into with my with teaching meditation and with SongSpark, my new online course. So that's what I'm really interested in, is how can I help someone dive deep into their truth by shining the light of my own authentic, deep truth. And that's my moment of truth.
Yeah, that's great. That is, it sums up why I'm doing these interviews, and in a way of, as you explore, like going deep into your own, right, help someone else get into theirs. And but I want to ask a follow-up question to the retreat. You went to the retreat. You meditation. How, I guess maybe more, how would you care to expand more on how meditation and your music can help, say, myself, like, go deeper into self-awareness?
Absolutely. I used to think meditation was just an activity that you did, and that it was like, okay, you do it and then it's done, and then you can get that out of the way so you can really live your life for the rest of the day. But what I now understand is that you really want to be doing it at different times throughout the day, and it is life. I consider meditation to just be the natural state of life. If you go out into nature, look at the deer, what are they doing? They're meditating. They're just breathing there and focusing on the sensations of life. I had this moment in meditation where my ego literally dissolved. And I know that sounds crazy, especially for those of you who have not tried any psychedelic drugs. But it really did feel like somewhat of an acid trip, because I dissolved into oneness. And I know that that's like a concept that is hard to grasp when you haven't ever felt it.
Mm-hmm.
But it was so pure and so true, and I had so many realizations, and I just felt so at peace, I think, and content. And of course, it can't last forever, so it did fade away after the retreat. But I was able to use that concentration that I developed to enter into a state of samadhi, which is a state of basically bliss and insight and equanimity. I think I stabilized the mind enough so that it could I guess, step out of the cycle that it had been in and really become one with what my surroundings were. I think it also helped that I was surrounded by other people who were doing the same thing. Mm-hmm. And then, as the grand finale, at the end of the retreat, we did a special love and kindness meditation interaction where you sort of cultivate feelings of being held in loving kindness, feeling safe and happy, and all the hippie stuff. And you do it to yourself, and then you direct it to a person that you know well, like a benefactor, someone who's always been there for you. And then you take it to a neutral person, someone that you ran into at a grocery store. And then you take it to a difficult person, someone that you actually have a hard time with. And then you take it to your general community that you know, and then to something bigger like the world, or if that's too big, just the state that you're in, or country. and then you come back at the end to yourself. And as a felt sensation, that was the greatest feeling I've ever felt in the whole world. It felt so warm and soft and lovely, and I didn't know how good love could be until I had generated so much of it at that point. I know I wouldn't have been as profound if I hadn't had been sitting in silence and practicing concentration and able to really generate that powerful level of attention on focusing on generating love. But yeah, it was so warm and so lovely, and it made me realize that love is already around us, all around us. It's already here. It's in between you and me right now. It's in between all of us. It's in between whoever's watching this on their computer. It exists. And if we just feel into it and step into embodying that as sensation in the body, then our day usually goes a lot smoother.
Yeah. Yeah, I love it. Cool. Love. Powerful. So you expand on the meditation. I'd like to find out more about your musicianship and at what point in your life did you discover that, and how did that transpire?
Yeah. So I'm from the Piedmont Triad in North Carolina, born and raised. Actually a very conservative area, very religious family. But my mom was a black sheep. She was a rebel and a hippie, and she saw through a lot of the facade. So she and I had a confrontation while I was in the 7th grade in a very rigorous magnet school. And it was a project that was worth 30% of my grade. I had 2 months to work on it, and I waited until the last day. She found out, and we had a big fight, and it all came out, all the frustration, and I just said at the end of the fight, I want to get a C on this project, to get a C in this grade, to move on to the next grade and get a C in that one, so I can eventually drop out. And she had been doing some research on a niche called unschooling, which is a type of homeschooling where you give your child complete and utter freedom. And you're just there as more of a resource. So we went for that. And because of that, I was able to step into, I guess, a more authentic version of myself. Up to that point, I had someone telling me what to do. If you think about it, all these kids in school today, they go to preschool and they're programmed and told what to do all day, every day. Even when you go home from school, homework, there's homework to do, extracurricular activities, there's eating, and it's like, it's all programmed. There's no time to just sit there and play and be and discover and do a little bit of self-inquiry. So I had that opportunity to do that self-inquiry, and I started to want to travel, and I started to want to, explore who I really am. Like, who am I? As most teenagers do. They have a identity crisis there. My mom connected with a nonprofit that helps start alternative schools called the Alternative Education Resource Organization. And to this day, I still am involved with them. And I went to their first ever conference in 2004, and it was very important. I met the director, and he said, yes, you can come intern. So for the next 5 years, I would lead a dual life where I traveled independently by train to New York, worked there doing website editing, video editing, office stuff, I would come back into North Carolina and have a life here as well with family. It gave me a lot of freedom. It gave me a lot of time to reflect. And it's definitely part of my identity of who I am. And to this day, I consider myself an autodidact, which is a self-directed learner.
Mm-hmm.
And on that same trip, I went to my first rock show. I saw Eric Clapton, and he was at this huge stadium, and everyone was staring at his guitar, and there was like his whole band, and he's playing like cocaine, he's like and I'm like, oh my god, that's what I want to be. I want that kind of attention on me. I naively wanted that level of fame. And it totally blew my head open, and I was like, I gotta get a Stratocaster, Mom, and she bought me one the next Christmas season, and I took a few lessons and then fired the teacher. I was like, no, I'm self-directed. I'm doing this all on my own through the power of the internet. And then I sort of really took the train off the tracks and ran with it. And I have developed my own styles and ways of doing things since then. And I've released 4 records, toured 3 continents, and released a number of music videos, and I've had a great time doing it. So it's that level of freedom that I owe it all to. I don't think I would have discovered music if it wasn't for my mom taking me out of school, deciding to unschool me, and letting me be me.
Yeah. Wow. I'm going to bring it back to you talking about the deer, meditating for a minute, and just in terms of as species, right now, I hear you say, hey, you just think about deer, like they meditate all day long. Like I want to get to that from a meditative practice.
Yeah.
But as humans, we are a species that have imagination. And I say that from just listening to your story and seeing you at this Eric Clapton concert. I get to tap into your imagination telling me that story. But at the end of the day, ultimately, the freedom is then allows you not only just the imagination of I want to be Eric Clapton, but then to be the creativity, right? To be able to create via the same tools that he's using. So exploring this mesh of the animal kingdom and their capability of meditative state that we're constantly maybe trying to chase down, while at the same time having this other human capability that animals don't have, which is imagination, creativity.
Yeah.
And really for you, like what I love about the story is the potential. The potential to tap into it because of the freedom to pursue what you're passionate about.
Yeah.
And I really resonate with that. The importance of that for a 40-year-old like myself. But how do you get that? At an earlier age.
I think there is a cutoff point. It's like 13, 14, where if you've been in a authoritative system, your natural drive, curiosity, whatever you want to call it, sort of gets cut off in a way. And accustomed to the way of life, which is what most people know and experience. So that is why I'm so passionate about getting these kids at an early age, because then you can actually have a deeper influence on them. Other thing to remember is this whole experiment of this whole system, authoritative system, is very recent and relatively, comparatively short, and compared to how we've always done things as like a indigenous tribal society for the majority of human history. And when I speak of unschooling and freedom in learning, it's actually really just the way things have always been done. Our current rigorous, authoritative educational system was designed by a country that no longer exists. It's called Prussia in the 1800s. And it really has not been around for about a couple hundred years. And I think of it as an overlay on what was already working, but a really extensive overlay. And that's also how I think of a lot of the humanness, overthinking that we place over our natural quality of life, that is meditation. I think that when you really go deep, you get to discover and enjoy the fact that there's nowhere to go, there's nothing to do, there's only to be. And meditation is our natural state of being. It's just that we put a lot of expectations and stuff like mental processes over it, especially lately with the advent of technology and how things have gotten ever more complex in our modern society. So the other part of it is, I'm sort of a rogue fish swimming against a systemic problem, which is a lack of awareness and a lack of freedom. So I think one of my challenges is that sense of isolation that I get from, most people aren't unschooled. Most people don't meditate. Most people don't play music. And I have chosen a difficult path in that way. But I wouldn't trade it for anything. And I love it so much, because when you are in that state of being and your mind gets out of its own way, it's like there's nothing better, and there's nothing more authentic, and there's nothing more loving too. You're coming into union. That's all it is. And that's actually all the word yoga means. That's one of the reasons I chose to do yoga teacher training, and make it one of the ways that I teach people, is it is so open-ended. Music is the same way. Meditation, sort of. But yeah. I like open-ended activities, I guess you would say. So that's where I'm at.
So we've gotten some of the story of your path, and thus far as how you found music, how you found meditation, and you mentioned something just now that I'd like to ask more about, and that is teaching.
Yeah.
So now that you've gone through these difficult phases of unlearning, but learning, right? But learning what you want to learn, what now are you doing to provide that from a teaching standpoint?
Absolutely. My number one goal in life is to help as many people as possible, as deeply as possible. And the way that I am exploring manifesting that is to launch an online course. I'm calling it Song Spark, and I'm really excited about the potential of it because there's nothing out there like it. Nothing that even comes close. Because it's a different paradigm that I'm operating from. that most people are thinking about songwriting and performing and in a logical way, left-brained. You want to have a, anti-melody with your verse and your chorus, and, you want to do this with your song. And to me, that kills it. That's not what being creative is about. If I can show you a few little tricks and tips to help you decide whether a certain thing in your creative process is something that you want to use, that's great. But for me, ultimately, it's about creating the optimal environment for the song to come through me, rather than me sitting down, planning out at an exact time about when I'm going to write a song and what the song's going to be about. You never know what's going to come up for you. And that's what relates to meditation as well. It's like, we sit down and meditate, we don't know what emotions will arise, but we have to be willing to have tea with them. The beginner way of looking at it is to get overwhelmed and not even open the door to the emotion. Just say, go away emotion, come back another time. The intermediate way to look at it is to invite the emotion into your home, but at a certain point, you get uncomfortable and you ask the emotion to leave. The advanced way of doing things is to invite the feeling, the emotion, into your home for tea and say, we can have tea here for as long as you like, emotion. You can't come back in the kitchen, because that's where I'm making the tea. But you can stay here for as long as you like, as long as necessary. And be prepared to really be there for forever. And accept that. That's a very advanced way of looking at it. And when you do that, as a songwriter, the best stuff comes. That's when all you write all the hits, man, I'm telling you, coming out of you like nobody's business. So I teach people how to go deep, how to access their unconscious mind. I think that most people have these little bits of crumpled up pieces of paper of old belief systems and ways of doing things, mental processes that don't really serve them. It's like baggage. And we go in and we find those pieces of paper, we examine those, we're going to read those pieces of paper. And so it is a bit difficult, it is a bit uncomfortable. And it's not something that most people are willing to do. And it's something that a lot of people will have a hard time with if they've been in that other paradigm of this is how you do things, authoritative, here's your homework, such and such. On the other hand, I do give people the practical tools and what they need to be successful. I think that if you use these activities and tools that I give, that you could apply them to a lot of other things in your life, not just songwriting and performing. So I think there's a lot of extra benefit in what I have to offer. So I'm excited. I'm so excited because it's so much fun to go up and collaborate with people and find people who feel the same way about these things. I actually wanted to show how easy it could be. So I went downtown, had someone follow me with a camera, and I just went up to people. I said, hey, do you want to write a song with me? And half of them thought I was crazy, and were like, no, absolutely not. But the other half were like, oh, I'll tell you what, let's do it. And some of them didn't know what to sing about, and so I gave them a prompt. I was like, well, what do you love? What's your favorite thing to do in the world? Got all kinds of good, amazing songs that way. So people are passionate. It's just they aren't used to being that exposed and vulnerable in that way. So it takes a little bit of ice breaking to get into that.
So the course, is that what we're calling it? The course is called Song Spark.
Mm-hmm.
And how will you conduct it? Is it one-on-one? Is it going to be video seminars? Or?
It's going to be a mix of an automated online course and a real-time Facebook group with real people and a real community aspect to it. I think they're both important. The automated nature of the actual course itself allows me to scale it unlimited, and also be able to focus on writing songs myself, performing, and really mastering my craft as well. And then also developing more online courses as well. The community aspect is super important. I'm going to start a Facebook group, and that's also sort of how you hold each other accountable during the journey.
Yeah.
So that's how it literally looks.
Yeah. So, and if you have more to talk about, one last question I'll have is how is someone that's watching this going to find SoundSpark?
Absolutely.
Find you, find your music. Yeah.
Now all you gotta do is type in Daniel Sage in Google and it all comes up, man.
Okay.
It's magic. My website is danielsage.org. Instagram is danielsage91. Yeah, you should be able to find me. I just crossed that threshold where it's like, you can do that.
Mm-hmm.
For the longest time, I was like obscure. I was the most obscure artist, underground artist that you'd ever want to meet. But not so much anymore. I'm coming into the light.
Great. Anything else you want to address?
That's it, man. Thank you so much for having me, Alex.
Thank you, Daniel.
All right.
Peace out.
No matter what we face, we all must face a moment of truth.